I'm a photographer, but mostly what I practice is alternative process printmaking. I work full-time as an engineer, and I do my photography and my printmaking in the spaces between that, I suppose. I want to be surprised when the print comes out. There's no guarantees it's going to turn out the way you want. Like anything in life, I suppose, there's no guarantee it's going to work out. But when it does, and when what comes out is either what you expected or even better than you expected, that's kind of like why I do it. My name is Andrew Burns, and that's more or less how I'd introduce myself. You're in my garage, just a corner of my garage, and you're here because that's my studio, basically. So I'm a photographer, but mostly what I practice is alternative process printmaking. And to do that, I need to coat paper and different materials like glass or whatever with various chemicals in the dark and expose them to UV light to make my prints. And so to do that, it makes sense to do it in, a garage or somewhere that you have access to running water, where you can spill things, where you can make it dark. So yeah, this is where I'll do all my prints. I grew up in Australia, in Sydney. Then I moved to New Zealand about 12 years ago, 11 years ago. Very standard Australian family, two parents, two children, and a house in the suburbs. So pretty normal upbringing, I think. In terms of like art and photography, there's a group of like photographers online in a chat group that I'm part of. And I think they've had quite a lot of influence. They were very encouraging when I got into this alternate process printmaking. They're all, some of them are like professional photographers, but most of them have other jobs. They're programmers, engineers, what have you. But I feel like they're all quite good at what they do. They all have kind of their own styles and preferences, but I trust their opinions. They're quite good at being critical, but also encouraging at the same time, I guess, which I think is necessary. Like you need people who are willing to be honest with you about what you're doing. Yeah, I've been making things all my life. Probably when I was a child, to be honest. So I guess that's maybe one one strange thing about my upbringing is that even my sister, she was always into making things as well. So even from like kind of 5 years old or earlier, I would pull apart my toys and put them back together again. We'd be like building different contraptions, like, a sort of doormat that would set an alarm off if someone stepped on it, all that kind of thing. So yeah, probably I wouldn't even remember. It would be like when I was a young child, I would have been making things. I feel like actually mountains and like climbing mountains has always been a thing which has probably had the biggest influence on my life. So like other than making art, I like to do a bit of very easy mountaineering as well. And I guess that kind of environment when you're above the tree line, when you're in the snow, kind of on the sort of mountain peaks, that is where I kind of like to be the most. Yeah, I really like that environment, which is why like a lot of my prints are from those places as well. If I'm not thinking about my work, then I would say that I'm a very active outdoors person. So I, if I'm not here printing, I'm not at work in the office, then I'd probably be cycling, climbing, running, hiking, any of those things. Just not at the beach. I've always made things, but I don't know why, but I guess when I was around the time that I was leaving Australia, I wanted a camera. I just kind of felt like that was something I'd taken photos as a kid, but like not sort of, I guess, with any purpose. But I got into that then, and actually like I think that photo was the one at printers with one of those cameras, like the sort of very earlier one. But then more around like that, I mean, I enjoyed doing that, but it wasn't something that really clicked with me until I got into film photography, maybe in like 2018, 2019. And I think it was the combination of the creativity of it, but also the kind of hands-on aspect of it as well, and like the manual labor involved was what made sense to me. I never like just kind of like click and then share a photo online. It doesn't sort of feel like anything to me. It just whereas having to like kind of put effort in, having to like involve your hands and make things, even to get the photograph and to make the print, that's what I like doing. I would say to an extent the city shaped me. I don't think I've had any effect on the city. I would say that, again, mostly the outdoor side of things as opposed to the city itself. But, you know, where you live, if you're a photographer, that is, where you live tends to be where you have most of your subjects. Like, you can really only, unless you're traveling all the time, you can really only take photos of things that are around you. Or, you know, you get most exposed to those things. So I feel like where you live definitely has an impact on the subjects that you photograph and the kinds of prints that you make. So even though these are all kind of like outdoory sort of things, half of these photos are from Auckland anyway, and I have a whole series of more urban photography that I'm yet to print that is, you know, pretty heavily informed by where we live. Observation, I suppose, but when it comes to taking photos, I know that there's a whole framework of how to compose images, where you put things in the frame, and repetition between things, rhythm, whatever else you want to call it. There's sort of a formal language or framework for making photos, but I can't think of any of that when I'm taking photos. I just have to look at something and I know there's a photo there, and kind of in that way, I suppose I work more on instinct. Um, if I try and think about it too much, it doesn't work. I just need to wander around and be in the zone, I suppose. Pretty busy. Like, I work full time as an engineer, and I do my photography and my printmaking in the spaces between that, I suppose. So yeah, it just comes down to when I have time. But otherwise, good. Like, it's I have enough time. I wish I had more, but so does everybody, right? If I'm not at work, then it would probably be here, garage, or out doing some kind of adventure. Yeah. I suppose I'll answer this a bit differently. One thing that I really notice about Auckland, even really, I suppose, but New Zealand in general, is the air. It feels very fresh to me. I remember we went to Vietnam a year or two ago, and after 2 weeks there, coming back to here, that was the first thing I noticed getting out of the airport. Is just kind of like the air. Even in Auckland, you know, it's the big city, right? But it's not that big of a city, really. So I feel like, you know, even Auckland and all of New Zealand is a very fresh sort of place. I suppose a meaningful life would be to just live the way that you think is best. I mean, most ethical, most enjoyable for you. Do the things that you like doing. Don't worry too much about what you should and shouldn't be doing or what people think about what you do. But, you know, live, you know, for yourself, I suppose, and for others around you. Yeah, I suppose getting into this sort of alternate process printmaking, like before photography was really, the limits of it were sharing an image online or printing something with an inkjet printer or that sort of thing. Very constrained, I suppose, but since getting into this, there are so many more possibilities. So almost kind of blending printing or photography with sculpture, for example. What I'm working on currently is separating a color image into cyan, magenta, yellow, and black separations, printing each one of those individually onto glass plates, and then stacking up the glass plates so that when you look at it from one angle, you see the color image, but if you move around and sort of change your perspective, then you see those different color planes separate from each other. So yeah, it's taking the photography beyond just like a two-dimensional thing, making it a three-dimensional object, and making it something that A, you have to see in person really, but also B, that you interact with it, and if you move around, it changes as much as you do. Well, hopefully a lot more of this. It's sort of, it's almost a side track, I suppose, but I really like trying new things, trying new processes, and experimenting. So I would really like to be able to have mastered multiple different processes. Obviously, I'm already doing that, but I suppose like I just want to try new things all the time, new techniques. And one, I guess, cool thing about this type of printing again is that you can tailor the way the print is made and the way the print looks to the body of images. So I have whole sets of images that I only want to print one specific way because I know that method will work really well with the photo or really well with the subject or the series. When I'm in here doing a light sensitive process, I have these yellow lights going on, but I have to make the room completely dark otherwise. So either at night or I block off all the windows, and it's very dark, it's very calm, it's very quiet, and it's almost like a cozy place. Like it's really sort of you're just here with your thoughts and with what you're doing, and you can't think about anything else because you're literally in a dark room with only what you're doing in front of you. So I feel like that's very grounding because it really does bring you into the present and it blocks off everything else. It's maybe if you're like a musician, it's like being in a recording studio or something. It's just you and what you're doing. I suppose at the end of the day, I want to be surprised when the print comes out. With all of these things, you don't know what it's going to look like until you go through the entire process because it changes so much. You start from either a blank sheet of glass or a piece of paper with yellow chemistry painted on it, and there's no guarantees it's going to turn out the way you want. Like anything in life, I suppose, there's no guarantee it's going to work out. But when it does, and when what comes out is either what you expected or even better than you expected, that's kind of like why I do it and sort of what I would hope to see at the end of it. Probably just, a friendly, kind person, I suppose. Really, I want, I mean, I have a talk coming up in a few days, which is more of sort of the technical side of things. But the message I want to get across to those people, because again, that's going to be a very technical audience. The message I want to get across there is that you don't need to live under someone else's label, I suppose. I mean, I'm an engineer, right? And most people would consider that to be almost one of the least creative things you can do, which I don't think is true. But just because you're technically minded, because you can do those kinds of things, doesn't mean you can't also be artistic. So I think I would like to leave people with the impression that they can use their own personal skills, what they're good at, and they can apply that to a whole different range of things. Like in my case, for example, applying my technical abilities to making art as well. Don't let people label you, do what you want.